Imagine standing across the net from a human whirlwind. You've faced the most intimidating defenders in the history of world football, you've lifted the World Cup trophy, and you are literally known as the phenomenon. But then, a yellow felt ball comes screaming toward you at a speed that defies physics, and suddenly, you realize that the tennis court is a very different battlefield than the pitch. This is exactly what happened when the legendary Ronaldo Nazário decided to trade his boots for a racket to spar with none other than Carlos Alcaraz. What started as a friendly exhibition of skill ended with a global sporting icon unable to even lift his arm to greet people. It sounds like a tall tale, but the injury Ronaldo sustained from Alcaraz's heavy hitting tells us everything we need to know about the sheer, raw power the young Spaniard is currently unleashing on the ATP Tour. Welcome back to Tennis Desk, where today we are diving into one of the most fascinating crossovers in recent sports history. It's not every day you see two Carlitos from such different worlds collide. On one hand, you have Carlos Alcaraz, the Spanish sensation who has taken the tennis world by storm with his explosive forehands and relentless energy. On the other, you have the Argentine Carlos Alcaraz, currently making waves for Everton in the Premier League. But while the Argentine is busy finding the back of the net, the Spanish world number one has been busy finding the shoulders of legends. Ronaldo Nazário, a man who redefined the striker position, recently opened up about his encounter with Alcaraz in an interview with Case TV, and his description of the event is as hilarious as it is revealing. Ronaldo isn't just a casual observer, he's become a massive tennis enthusiast in his retirement. He actually trains 3 times a week and has gone on record saying he finds football too boring to watch now compared to the 5-hour marathons of a classic tennis match. But even with all that training, nothing could have prepared him for the weight of an Alcaraz groundstroke. According to Ronaldo, the session started off smoothly enough. They met, exchanged some pleasantries, and began to hit. For the first 30 minutes, Ronaldo felt like he was handling the pace reasonably well. He was keeping up, the rhythm was good, and the vibes were high. But as anyone who watches Alcaraz knows, the kid has a gear that most humans simply don't possess. When Alcaraz decided to inject a little more speed and heaviness into his shots, the physical toll on Ronaldo's body became immediate. Ronaldo described the aftermath with a grimace and a laugh, explaining that the inflammation in his shoulders started almost instantly. By the time he arrived in São Paulo shortly after the session, he couldn't even raise his hand to wave at fans or greet friends. He was literally forced to post photos on Instagram with bags of ice strapped to his shoulder, all because of a friendly rally with a 21-year-old. It really puts into perspective the heavy ball that professional players talk about. When we watch on TV, it looks like a simple game of catch, but the torque and revolutions Alcaraz puts on the ball create a physical impact that can rattle the bones of even an elite athlete like Ronaldo. Despite the physical agony, Ronaldo couldn't stop praising the young Spaniard. He called him super charismatic and super friendly, noting that Alcaraz's easygoing nature off the court is exactly what makes him such a terrifying champion on it. To cap off the meeting, Ronaldo even gifted Alcaraz a signed Brazilian national team jersey, a holy grail for any sports fan. For Alcaraz, who is a massive football fan and a regular at the Santiago Bernabéu supporting Real Madrid, this was a dream come true. But while the social media photos looked perfect, the reality for Ronaldo was a couple of days of physical therapy and a newfound respect for the violence of a pro-level forehand. However, as we move away from the glitz and glamour of celebrity exhibitions, the narrative for Carlos Alcaraz takes a much more serious turn. While his trip to Florida was highlighted by this meeting with Ronaldo and a victory over João Fonseca at the Miami Invitational, his actual performance at the Miami Open left a lot of fans scratching their heads. Entering as a heavy favorite, Alcaraz hit a massive roadblock in the round of 32. The man who played the role of the giant killer was Sebastian Corda. In a match that truly went down to the wire, Corda managed to outmaneuver the Spaniard, taking the match 6-3, 5-7, 6-4. It was a jarring result. For a player of Alcaraz's caliber, crashing out that early in a Masters 1000 event on hard courts felt like a significant stumble, especially considering how dominant he usually looks in the American swing. This defeat marked a disappointing end to his hardcourt season, leaving him with plenty of questions to answer as the tour shifts to its most grueling phase, the clay court swing. And that brings us to the present moment, where the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. We are standing on the precipice of the Monte Carlo Masters, and for Alcaraz, this isn't just another tournament. It is a battle for survival at the top of the mountain. He heads to Monaco as the defending champion, which is both a blessing and a curse. In the world of ATP rankings, being the defending champion means you are defending 1,000 points. If you don't repeat the win, you lose points. This is where the math gets really scary for Alcaraz fans. Right on his heels is the Italian Sinner, Jannik Sinner. Sinner has been playing some of the most clinical, high-pressure tennis of his life recently, and he is smelling blood in the water. Currently, Alcaraz sits at the top with 13,590 points, while Sinner is lurking in second place with 12,400. On the surface, that looks like a comfortable lead, right? Wrong. Because Alcaraz is defending that 1,000-point title, his effective lead at the start of the tournament drops to a razor-thin 190 points. Think about that for a second. After months of grueling matches, the gap between the world number 1 and world number 2 essentially boils down to a single match win. The permutations for Monte Carlo are fascinating. If Sinner reaches the quarterfinals and Alcaraz stumbles in the round of 16, the crown changes hands. If Sinner goes deep and Alcaraz fails to reach the final, we could be looking at a new king of the ATP rankings. Sinner has already tasted that top spot briefly, and he is clearly hungry to reclaim it for a second time. Alcaraz is now under immense pressure to find his form on the red clay. He needs to find that same heavy shot that incapacitated Ronaldo, but he needs to aim it at the corners of the court against players who can actually hit it back. Clay is Alcaraz's natural habitat, his movement and variety are perfectly suited for the dirt, but his recent loss to Korda suggests that his confidence might have a few cracks in it. Can he shake off the Miami disappointment and assert his dominance in Monaco, or will the relentless consistency of Jannik Sinner prove to be too much? It's a fascinating time to be a tennis fan. We are watching a generational rivalry develop in real time. On one side, you have the explosive, emotional, and powerful Alcaraz, a player who can make a World Cup legend feel like a beginner. On the other, you have the cold, calculated, and incredibly precise Sinner. Monte Carlo is going to be the ultimate proving ground. The red clay of Monaco has seen some of the greatest battles in history, and this year feels like it's setting up for another epic chapter. As we look toward April 5th, all eyes will be on the practice courts. Will Alcaraz be able to dial in that forehand? Will his shoulder hold up under the pressure of defending a title? And perhaps most importantly, will he be able to handle the mental weight of Sinner breathing down his neck? Ronaldo might be watching from the stands with a bag of ice on his shoulder, but for the rest of us, the heat is only just beginning to rise. What do you think? Is Alcaraz's heavy game enough to keep him at world number 1, or is the Sinner takeover inevitable during this clay court swing? The points gap is so small that every single game matters now. We want to hear your predictions. Who leaves Monte Carlo as the king of the world? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, let's get a debate going. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update from the tennis desk. We'll be covering every angle of the Monte Carlo Masters, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.